Today, we become legends.
What will Smite 2's god roster look like on launch? A huge part of why we all play Smite is the gods themselves, and we all have our favourites. Not every god will be there on the launch of Smite 2. In fact, Hi-Rez have said they intend on having 50 gods available by launch, with a returning Smite 1 god every 2 weeks and a completely new god every 2 months. So who will be in those all-important 50 god slots pre-launch? Well, we know quite a few confirmed gods already. Firstly, we have a slew of gods confirmed by the gameplay trailer for Smite 2. Anhur, Ymir, Kukulkan, Bellona, Loki, Chaac, Anubis, Odin, Cernunnos, Bacchus, Neith, and the completely new Hecate can all be seen in some form during the keynote trailer we got at SWC. That's 12 of our 50 gods confirmed right there. The Divine Legacy event has also somewhat confirmed quite a few gods, as they all have skins in Smite 2 that you can earn from the event. These aren't technically confirmed for launch, but if there's already a skin for that god, it's highly likely they'll be there immediately. Some of these Divine Legacy skins overlap with gods we already saw in the gameplay trailer, like Chaac, Bacchus, Loki, Ymir, and Anubis. However, we do have 6 more gods getting Divine Legacy Smite 2 skins that all but confirm them for the launch of the game. Those gods in question are King Arthur, Izanami, Hercules, Pele, Nuwa, and Danzaburou. So that's 18 gods that are basically confirmed so far, leaving us with 32 more slots that need to be filled. We don't really have any info on how Hi-Rez will be choosing which gods make it to Smite 2 first. All Smite 1 gods will return eventually, but there's 130 of them, so naturally some will have to be left for later. Of these 18 gods, we have 5 warriors, 2 guardians, 2 assassins, 5 hunters, and 4 mages, assuming Hecate will be a mage, which is likely. It's probably quite safe to assume that each of the 5 classes will get a fairly even number of gods on launch. That means roughly 10 gods per class by the time the game launches out of alpha, so let's speculate on who might be returning for those remaining roster slots. For the remaining 5 warriors, Mulan and Surtur are extremely popular, and a lot of the currently revealed warriors are older gods, so some newer ones with these two make sense. Sun Wukong is probably a sure pick as well, as he's simple and easy to play, as well as extremely well known in the real world in terms of promoting the new game. I think Guan Yu is likely to fill a slot as well, as he's had a storied legacy in Smite 1, and the memes of Guan finally being able to build magical power again would be top notch. Plus, he's a fairly easy warrior to get into and very popular as well. Plus, he's very well known in the real world too. The final warrior slot is likely to be a completely new god. We know 5 all new Smite 2 gods will be coming before launch, and I can't imagine they won't do one for each class to kick off the game. So that's my speculation on the warrior roster for Smite 2. Chaac, Bellona, King Arthur, Hercules, and Odin are already confirmed, while Mulan, Surtur, Wukong, and Guan Yu are my predictions, plus 1 all-new Smite 2 warrior. Moving on to Hunters, where we already have Neith, Danzaburou, Anhur, Izanami, and Cernunnos confirmed. I think Medusa is highly likely to be there, as she's the only remaining very popular Hunter in terms of play rate in Smite 1. Plus, she's a very popular mythological character that can pull in new players with how awesome her ult could look in Unreal Engine 5. Artemis is probably likely as well, given she's popular and one of the true OGs of Smite Hunters alongside Neith and Anhur that are already confirmed. Hachiman is also extremely popular and a great design in my book, so I think it likely that he also returns for the launch roster, which leaves us with 1 more hunter aside from the likely new addition to the class for Smite 2. There are actually a ton of hunters that could make this slot in my opinion, such as Rama, Jingwei, or maybe even another ability-based hunter like AMC or Ula. However, with the launch of Nut in February for Smite 1 and her being one of the most highly requested gods ever, I think it's likely that she will be added to Smite 2 as well. So that's my predictions for the hunter roster. The already confirmed Neith, Danza, Izanami, Cernunnos, and Anhur, as well as Medusa, Artemis, Hachiman, Nut, and 1 completely new Smite 2 hunter. Moving on to the mages, which are by far the largest class in Smite 1, and we only have 3 confirmed returning mages so far, in Kukulkan, Anubis, and Nuwa. Some of the more popular ones from Smite 1 for sure. We also have Hecate, who I don't believe has been confirmed as a mage yet, but from what we've seen from her, I imagine she will be a mage. Which leaves us with 6 Legacy Smite 1 slots to fill. This is going to be a hard one, as there are so many iconic mages in Smite 1 that people love so much. I can't imagine Ra not making it before launch. He's one of the true OGs, and Smite 2 not having Ra snipes at launch will be very surprising to me. Janus is probably a likely candidate as well, given his popularity and uniqueness, though he is a bit of a balancing nightmare, so this is a tentative yes for Janus. We haven't seen any magical ADCs yet, and I think it's extremely likely we get at least 1 for the launch of Smite 2. Even though the whole item system is changing and any god can build any power type, I think it's still pretty likely that we will see one of these classic magical ADCs return. Freya probably needs a rework for the new game, game, honestly, and Kronos just isn't that interesting or popular, so this slot likely falls to Olorun or Sol. Given that Sol is far more popular than Olorun, I give the edge to her, but Olo also offers a unique pantheon and his ult would look incredible in UE5. That said, a lot of the confirmed gods are very popular with high play rates, so I think Sol is likely the candidate for a magical ADC for Smite 2. On a similar note, I think Baron Samedi is all but certain to come before launch. He's such an iconic character, is one of the more popular mages, and fills the quota of mage that can go tank quite nicely to bring some diversity to the Smite 2 mage roster, pun not intended. I also think it very likely that we'll get at least one healer mage in the launch roster, and given Aphrodite's very high popularity and almost meme status within Smite 1, I think she's very likely to return sooner rather than later. I know Ra is sort of a healer mage, but really he's a burst mage with a little bit of healing. I think bringing a true healer mage in Aphro would be a smart move for Smite 2's launch. Which leaves us with just one more mage slot. Honestly, this could be any of like a dozen choices, since so many mages are extremely popular and iconic in Smite 1. Agni is a great beginner god and would give some representation to the Hindu pantheon, which currently has none confirmed in the roster. A magical assassin like Aokwang or Maman Brigitte might make sense, but both of these gods are somewhat problematic in Smite 1, so might not be there on launch. Scylla is crazy iconic, Hades is very popular and fills the niche of a solo mage. There's so many to choose from, but I think given his popularity in the wider world, and the fact that he's basically a poster child for Smite alongside Bellona, Zeus is likely to fill this last mage slot for the roster. So that's my mage roster prediction. The already confirmed Kukulkan, Anubis, Nuwa, and Hecate, alongside Ra, Janus, Sol, Baron Samedi, Aphrodite, and Zeus. Moving on to assassins, we only have 2 confirmed assassins so far in Loki and Pele, with of course one completely new Smite 2 assassin, so that leaves us with 7 slots to fill for the launch roster. First up, I will eat my own shoe if Thor doesn't make it for launch. He's pretty popular in game, ridiculously popular out of game, and an iconic face of Smite. Thor is as close to guaranteed as it gets in my opinion. Thanatos is very similar. He's a bit less known in popular culture than Thor, but still very recognizable and is frequently one of the most played gods in the entire game at all levels of play in Smite 1. He's iconic and almost certainly returning for launch. Keeping in theme with the semi-globals, I think Ratatoska is likely to make it as well. He's pretty damn popular and has a very unique personality and model that would spice up the launch roster for assassins. Nemesis is another likely candidate in my opinion. So far we've only seen ability-based assassins and we're likely to get at least 1, maybe even 2 auto-attacking assassins for the launch roster. And as much as it pains me to say it, Arachne is also quite likely to make it as the second auto-attack assassin. She's just too popular at all times to not add to the game sooner rather than later. Personally, I would like to see her minorly reworked going into Smite 2, but either way, I think she will be there. Raven is another that I think is quite likely, though a bit less than the previously listed ones. He's quite popular and one of the best assassin designs in the game in my opinion. The final slot could go to either Awilix or Susano in my book. Both are pretty popular and iconic within Smite 1. For my money, I'll go with Susano as my prediction since a lot of the assassins listed here are quite basic and easy to get into. Having one more difficult god in that lineup makes sense to me. So that's my assassin predictions for Smite 2. The already confirmed Loki, Pele, and one completely new addition, as well as Thor, Thanatos, Ratatoska, Nemesis, Arachne, Raven, and Susano. Which just leaves us with the Guardians, of which we only have 2 confirmed so far in Ymir and Bacchus, as well as the one completely new Guardian from the 5 new gods we know will be there at launch. Which leaves us with 7 slots to fill. I think Athena is pretty likely. She's popular, iconic, and brings some uniqueness with her taunt and global ult. Plus, she's well known in the wider world too, which definitely helps. This is a spicy one, but I do think Charon is a likely candidate to return for Smite 2. He was very highly requested, and ever since his release, he's been a favourite of both the casual and the pro scene, and remains very popular even months after his launch this year. Ares is just too iconic to not make it for the launch in my opinion. He can fill that aggressive support niche that many players love to have and is very popular overall at all levels of play. Sylvanas is also likely to return in my view. He's very unique and not having the iconic Sylvanas pull in Smite 2 at launch would be a travesty in my opinion. Plus, he's in the top 5 most popular Guardians, at least at the moment. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here and say that I think either Khepri or Geb will return. I don't find it likely that both will be there at launch, but I couldn't see them not having a support like this in Smite 2. For my money, I think Khepri is more likely, but it also could be Geb. Next up is Yemoja. Lol, just kidding, there's no chance Yemoja's coming at launch in my opinion. She causes way too many balance problems for that, as good as her Moses ult would look in UE5. Cthulhu though, almost certain to return in my opinion. He was definitely the most popular god release of all time as per data from Hi-Rez, and is of course extremely well known in wider pop culture. Plus, he fills that more aggressive solo lane style Guardian that many of the current roster don't. And finally, I think Kuzenbo takes this last slot quite nicely. He's not immensely popular, but not super unpopular either. He's pretty middle of the road. However, I think Kuzenbo is just too iconic not to include. He's probably the biggest Smite God meme that has ever existed, and over the years has turned into a genuinely good design kit-wise. I'm not biased, I promise. But that's my Guardian predictions for Smite 2. The already confirmed Ymir, Bacchus, and one new addition, alongside Athena, Charon, Ares, Sylvanas, Khepri, Cthulhu, and Kuzenbo. So that's my full predictions on what Smite 2's 50 God lineup will look like when the game launches out of alpha. Of course, all Smite 1 gods will be coming at some point, and it's definitely possible some gods that are problematic in Smite 1 will be reworked going into Smite 2 and might come earlier than you expect, like Nox for example. But with the limited information we have, those are my thoughts on what the launch roster will look like. What do you think? Is it likely that your main will return to make it into Smite 2, and are you excited to see how amazing they look in UE5? Let me know down below, and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.